Welcome to West Virginia Beer Roads, a podcast all about beer from a West Virginia perspective. I'm Erin McCoy, here with my podcast partner, Charles Bockway.
Today, West Virginia Beer Roads travels to Huntington, West Virginia, to Summit Beer Station. As many of you know, Summit is the premier craft beer outlet here in southern West Virginia. It's a place we've truly grown to love over the past decade. And I'm here with my co-host, Erin McCoy. So, Erin, what do you like most about Summit Beer Station?
Definitely the selection. You know, here in the wild and at Summit Beer Station, we're currently sitting in the beautiful beer garden about to have this podcast interview, but the selection here is what I really like. There's a lot of unique beers here in comparison to other places as far as craft beer goes, and I thoroughly enjoy that. So for those of you who may not know, Summit Beer Station is the craft beer bar founded by Jeff McKay, and he is also one of our state's leading advocates for the craft beer industry, especially for beer retailers. And we're very pleased today to have Jeff McKay as our guest on West Virginia Beer Roads. Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be with you guys.
So, Jeff, how's your summer going beer-wise here at Summit Beer Station?
It's just more of the same. You know, after 10 years, got it down to a science, and not too much changes every year, it seems like.
All right. Well, for our listeners who haven't been here, in a nutshell, how would you describe your business model for Summit? As in, what are people going to find when they come visit?
Yeah, I mean, over the last 10 years, we haven't really changed too much. We've primarily focused on European beer, and there's much of the same now than what there was 10 years ago. Not to say that we're serving the same beers, but predominantly we have European beers. But outside of that, we'd like to focus on some of our favorite West Virginia breweries and regional breweries as well.
All right. Well, what are some people going to not find when they come and visit Summit Beer Station?
I don't know how much of a secret this is at this point, but we only serve independently made beer, so we don't have any beer here that is owned by major corporations or soda corporations, any number of other things. But yeah, all independently made beverages here. However, the Brewers Association decides or determines a independent brewery, and we're going to follow that for the most part.
Well, guys, before we get any further along into the podcast, I want to say that Jeff has shared a beer with Erin and I. And, Jeff, I'm going to ask you to introduce this first beer.
To introduce this is to hear my terrible French. So this is Chimé's 150, which is their 150th anniversary. It's their green label.
Oh, wow.
So this was a brand extension for them for their 150th just a couple years ago. This was one of the highlights while I was at the brewery last year. They did not share the secrets for the, unique aroma of this, that it has a very distinct herbal note to it on the top. All they told us was it has one of the most valuable and sought-after herbs on the planet, and they weren't going to tell us what it was.
But they did give you a little information.
They gave a little information.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, those Belgians can be difficult guarding their secrects. I know.
Yeah, it was all proprietary secrets there.
Did you, when you were there and you got to try it, did you get to try it right off the tap?
No, so they've got a close but disconnected tap room, and I had fortunately been able to try it before I got to the brewery. But you know, the experience of being near or in the monasteries makes it taste a little better.
No doubt, it's delicious.
And those Belgians, I mean, and even with this beer, I would think is one that's probably bottle conditioned, and that's a part of the process of making it taste the way it does.
Yeah, I mean, there's extreme care to Chimé's product, and they know what they're doing after 150 years. So who am I to say otherwise? And part of the other reason I wanted to drag this beer out of here is that we're one of a handful of Chimay ambassadors in the country. So I at least wanted to give them some props in this.
Little old West Virginia, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's not a beer taste that you're going to find at most American brewers.
Oh, that's correct. And it hides the alcohol very well. Surprise, it's 10%.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
You would really never know it. Like I said, they've honed in their craft after this amount of time.
You clearly would not know the ABV on this. It's very smooth and easy to drink.
Quaffable.
Quaffable.
Yeah, is that the right word?
Definitely
Yeah,
quaffable.
for a 10%er, it's marginally quaffable, I would guess. Well, guys, we're recording this podcast at the end of the month of June in West Virginia, and summer's moving along fast. Jeff, I'm curious, what's been hot this summer at the bar here at Summit, and maybe as far as beer brands and beer styles go?
I hate to rehash this answer for your listeners that have been listening to you for a while, but it's much of the same that we experienced last year. I mean, we're so heavy on lagers and specifically German Pils, and it's just I never would have guessed this because when I first opened up 10 years ago, lager wasn't really on the radar, and specifically Pils was not on the radar, and just within the last 2 or 3 years, it's taken off. I mean, this is encapsulating both novices and experts, I would say.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting, isn't it? I mean, to see that style that, 20 years ago, craft brewers didn't really want to make a lager because that was the purview of I guess they own, the big breweries owned those, and we don't want to make those, so we'll make ales. But that's not the only reason most of them didn't make lagers. Now they are, and what we're seeing across America is that in craft breweries, small craft breweries, they're making some great lagers.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, though, any particular beers that I know you have a variety sometimes of different lagers. I mean, what are some of the ones that are moving here?
Although it's been a little difficult to get a hold of as of late. I mean, Rathaus has been a staple for us the last 2 years. As far as I'm concerned, it's the best German Pilsner in the world. Hard to go wrong there.
So, and what part of Germany is it from?
The Black Forest region.
All right.
Not typically what you would associate with Pilsner country. But,
right.
Yeah, not the biggest brewery area either of Germany.
No,
not like Bavaria or something. Yeah.
Why, you said it was hard to come across of late. Is there a particular reason for that, or many things that influence that?
I don't question the slow boats and the shipping containers.
Understood.
But we have a keg sitting in there right now, so that's all that matters.
That is good. And we know what's moving, but what kind of beer styles do you find that are declining in customer demand?
I hate to even say this, but sour beer for us.
Wow.
Is that right?
Yeah. A lot of our customers are getting away from kettle sours.
Yeah.
And we've never really been heavy on kettle sours in the first place, but I can pull up the numbers. I can see that they're dwindling.
Yeah, and that's very interesting because some of our breweries, the small breweries here, are still making those, quick sours.
Yeah.
And they seem to think they're moving very fast. But that's interesting here. So you heard it.
Sours are declining.
Sours among craft beer aficionados maybe have already peaked.
Yeah, and honestly, Charles, I think among the past several few podcasts that we've done, we haven't really heard that overall. They'll say it's maybe starting to slow down, but not necessarily declining.
Can I split some hairs on this answer too?
Sure.
Split away.
I want to make sure that I'm not including lambic, that I'm not including
right.
goose, that I'm
Right.
not
Well, you
including.
did say kettle sour.
Yeah. That those are still selling well for us. It's the highly acidic, low pH quick sours that are really kind of going by the wayside.
Yeah, the quick sours. I think that's even better because the quick sours, when you say quick sour, that's something it means it didn't take very long, a few days to sour that beer. And the traditional sour beers, like your lambics and things, are many, many months of aging, usually in wood and other big tanks.
A little more delicate process.
Yes,
dare I
very
say.
much.
Yeah, very much so. Well, while we all know that Summit is the place in the area to find incredibly good imported craft beers, you also try to stay on top of the West Virginia brewery scene. So how do you manage that and balance out the offerings on your taps?
I hate to say this, but we're serving probably the least amount of West Virginia beer we've ever served.
Oh no!
I'm not. I don't want to give the impression that I don't like West Virginia beer. It's just that the trends of our business, the trends that I've seen over the last few years, we've been so heavily invested in European beer, and it's outpacing a lot of the West Virginia
Local
beer that we sell. And I will say that all of the same West Virginia mainstays that we have down here are still well represented, but we're giving more and more of our line space to European beer.
Oh, based on
sorry.
customer demand.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, you've always supported the local craft scene. I mean, clearly.
Yeah.
Do our West Virginia brewers do a good job of letting you know when they have a new beer that they're proud of and one that they want you to feature? Is there a lot of contact going on back and forth with the local scene?
Yeah, I don't have any qualms at all. I mean, even some of the West Virginia breweries that have moved on and signed with a wholesaler, there's still a point of contact there at the brewery, getting a hold of us, sending us emails,
Sure,
making sure that we're up to date. But I only have so much space. I can't serve all the West Virginia beer, sadly.
Yeah, and I think maybe part of the reason you're happy in your imported little bailiwick is because our distributors, in some cases anyway, are bringing in more of those beers that you could sell here.
Yeah, and I think that, to take a term from Belgium, they would call it specialty beer. So we've always been, that's my wheelhouse. So I force that on you.
you support that. That's okay.
It's not even that I support it. I'm forcing this on you.
it's
No,
your
hey,
business.
listen, that's why we come to Summit Beer Station, because
right.
you have beers other people in the area do not have. And it's not because the beer ain't good, folks. It is damn good beer at Summit Beer Station.
That's right.
So over the past year or so, we've seen so many new beers enter the West Virginia market from other states. And especially even Ohio, I guess, right over here. And with Summit Beer Station sitting right almost on the Ohio border here in West Virginia, which Ohio breweries have been over here that's produced some good sales for you?
Now, Jack O's is the natural answer, right?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
hoping
Yeah.
you'd say
Yeah.
that. You know?
I told a friend after Jack O's came into the market and came down to our anniversary last year and really blew it out of the water, that if I don't have a Jack O's beer on tap, just shut the business down because I have failed. So it's been that way since they've moved into the market. But I mean, we've also done really well with Urban Artifacts, even though they still have some of those really highly acidic sour beers. I think our proximity to Cincinnati helps with those
Sure.
sales. And the same with 50 West as well. We've had some, actually, funny enough, some really good Pilsners and lagers from 50 West.
Yeah, Aaron and I were up at Jackie O's last week and did a podcast up there. And, that's a brewery. It's outstanding, not just in our Appalachian region here. And, it's like 30 miles out of West Virginia or maybe less, 20 miles. But it stands up with any of the better breweries around the country these days and overall. And so what do you think is the key that those guys have discovered as how they could make beer that really is, and such a variety of beer too?
Yeah, I think that they have, how do I put this? Okay, business 101, don't try to be everything.
Yeah, right.
And they have really
Found a
niche. Yeah, they have learned to tightrope that. They have, as far as beer is concerned, they've covered all the bases. But I think the difference is they do everything amazingly well.
Right.
So that's the difference.
Quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quality and quantity. So they've covered all their bases for sure.
And Jeff, beyond Ohio, are there any newer breweries or breweries that particularly stand out to you that you couldn't get before, but in the last year or two you've been able to get here?
Can I adjust this?
Or
question?
what, to like other breweries on your wish list that you wish would come here?
That's a better question.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Oh my God, this has been a long time coming. For years and years and years, I tried to get Shelton Brothers in West Virginia to the point that they were ready to commit to buying a warehouse here and
then they went bankrupt.
And then they went bankrupt. So, yeah, that's going way back.
Yeah,
But
stake into the heart.
I've been in contact with Lime Ventures, who has taken over their portfolio. So over the last, 2 or 3 years, we've been in contact, sometimes frequent, sometimes not. Initially,
good.
we were trying to get them to purchase that temporary brewer's license to come to Rails and Ales last year. And,
Right. Test out the market.
It just didn't work out, but they're coming. So I've been chatting with the Driefonteinen rep. Certainly.
And explain that for the listeners that aren't familiar
sorry,
with that
sorry.
name, because we haven't had it here in West Virginia.
So Driefonteinen is a lambic brewery right outside of Brussels. If you're familiar with Brussels, they're just like a 5-minute, 10-minute walk from the Lot train station near Albiersel, Island Blanche, other lambic breweries. But many consider Driefonteinen to be one of the best, if not the best, lambic brewery in the world. We will soon have access to that. So.
And was certainly one of the stars of the Shelton Brothers line when they were in business.
Absolutely.
And now of the new company.
I mean, and of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that Cantillon is part of this portfolio, and one would hope that we can get access to that as well. But they're not just Belgian beer. There's very good German beer. There's Pohila, they're coming to cherry wine from Scandinavia. It's all coming. So that's what I'm excited about.
It's going to be up to you and your great persuasive powers to talk your distributor into getting these beers for you, right?
Yeah, I don't want to out too many secrets yet, but the wholesaler that they chose is going to do it right. They will knock it out of the park for them. So.
That's exciting. I can't wait for that.
Yes. I've got my fingers crossed that it'll be here in time for Rails and Ales. But
oh, boy.
Yeah, well, hey, speaking of Rails and Ales, many of our listeners probably know that Jeff McKay is a driving force behind the annual Rails and Ales Beer Festival that's held every summer in Huntington, West Virginia. So, Jeff, what is the date of this year's festival, and what can we expect from it?
It'll be August 12th. What to expect? This is our 10th year.
Big celebration, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a de facto 10th year because we've been in business now for 11. But,
right.
Everybody's memory short from COVID. So.
Right.
I hate to give this stock answer again, but more of the same, We like at Summit focus on entirely independently made beer. So we'll have expanded the cider selection this year as well. So
Good.
Yeah, and the beer list is not set in stone, so I can't give any secrets because I don't have any secrets yet.
It is a moving animal, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the riverfront's in better condition this year. Renovations have been completed now for a year, so
thank goodness.
Yes,
Yeah.
It was a bit of a muddy mess. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I think we were hearing a few sirens, downtown background here.
Yeah, in this beautiful beer garden, in case you're
here
wondering what the background noise
Huntington,
is.
West Virginia. And I don't know, it's kind of this crowd that's in town, too.
That's right.
It's a wild place now, downtown Huntington. Gets crazier and crazier. Hey, when you talk about the beers, though, that you're going to have at the festival, I mean, I think people got to be aware, and I'll let you comment on this for sure, that these are not just the normal beer festival beers that you get in West Virginia normally.
Yeah, I think that's a function of the size of the brewery. We are the largest festival, so I don't want to say we push our weight, but we can get some of these things. And
yeah, I mean, there's different beers here than a lot of the ones you see at other beer festivals.
Yeah, and I like to push the reps and like say send us something a little special for the VIP ticket holders.
Yeah.
Well, let's treat them a little bit, of course.
Yeah, well, it doesn't hurt to be pushy, especially when you're getting a beer festival. You want to have some unique selling propositions, for a beer festival. And what are you charging for a ticket this year?
Oh. What is this, a pop-up quiz?
Yeah, $75. I forget. I don't know.
Yeah. It's
I'm not sure.
I think VIP's $65 and then general admission's $50.
I see. That's a bargain. I've been to these festivals that are $75, and they're nothing better than what you guys put on here in Huntington.
But don't quote me on that.
Oh well.
Please
all right.
please consult Eventbrite.com.
Yeah, that's right. Rails
and then
ales.
write me an angry email.
Yes, in case you missed that.
I just assumed you would be on the tip of your tongue what the price was, but
No, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
So, Jeff, speaking of being pushy, you're a guy that's always been advocating for new laws and regulations that'll make our West Virginia beer market a better craft beer market. We've had some new beverage alcohol laws go into effect recently here in the state. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about those.
So there were two main wants for me at the beginning of the session, and I've got some friends in the legislature who had reached out to me prior to the session. They said, "Give me your wish list." So I sent them I don't know.
Oh,
a,
yeah.
a list of about
Like
50,
10 pages, front
Yeah,
and back,
yeah,
single
it-
spaced.
It was it was a lot.
It was a book.
So we dwindled that down.
Yeah.
The main important. Well, I don't know. Say it. Okay, there were two.
Focus.
Yeah, two that we really wanted to hit. One of which was allowing somebody whose primary residence wasn't in West Virginia
Right.
to open up a brewery, and then with that, somebody who lived elsewhere and owned a brewery elsewhere, legally allowing them to open up a second location in West Virginia.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, which before they could have a brewery here, but they couldn't have a tap room, right?
it was their primary residence had to be in West Virginia.
Yeah.
It was a
then-
requirement, right.
Yeah, but then the catch was, even if their primary residence was here,
Yeah.
they still couldn't have the second brewery in the other state. So
Yeah.
it was very
Insane.
convoluted.
Yeah.
And then
But that's good. That's changed now. That's a
Yeah.
fantastic
That-
addition, which could lead to new breweries opening here, and God knows we need a couple more.
yeah, I mean,
Or 10.
Well, and we could think back to all the expansion of breweries on the West Coast coming to the East Coast, and,
Yeah.
and West Virginia was a black hole because of this
Right,
law.
right, right.
Yeah, they couldn't
They-
even consider us,
We
right?
couldn't. Stone couldn't consider us. Deschutes consider us. Nobody could consider us. And then, for the most part, everybody was kind of none the wiser to it. And meanwhile, we're just banging our head against the wall. And the second one that I was,
Yeah.
I
Put a
guess,
lot of effort and
Put it,
focus
yeah,
in,
to
yeah.
to really push was the private outdoor designated area.
Yes.
Which, if you're familiar with DORA in Ohio, is basically an
Yeah.
entertainment zone that you could take an open container from a bar or restaurant participating in that area and freely walk within that zone.
Which is previously, of course, approved by that license or that zoned area.
So-
Like the perimeter itself.
Yeah, envision you going to a zoning board and pitching an idea of, I want these 3 blocks, and this floor plan extends to all those businesses that want to participate. So this is something that I had pushed immediately when the lockdown happened, and it didn't really get any traction until we saw how successful Ohio was.
Yeah. Because, I mean, even as close as like Portsmouth, don't they have one of those?
Yeah, Portsmouth, Chillicothe. Kentucky's had it for years.
Yeah.
Ashland's getting ready to roll that out.
Yeah,
So
cool.
I reached out to Delegate Young, and I told her, hey, I'm looking at expanding Summit to Ohio, and they've got all this stuff that we don't have. How do we get DORA in West Virginia? And she proposed a bill, and thankfully that bill was consumed by the broader service industry bill.
That's great.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think that's going to make a difference. It's whether it be in Huntington, Charleston areas. Like you've got, what do you call this, 9th Street here that
Yeah.
you're on, and you guys have always had that kind of a zone here. Is that going to change how, like on weekends, they only have it like what, Friday nights in the summer? Talk a little about what people come to when they come down here on Friday nights.
Yeah, I think we maybe have to back up a little bit with this, because the precipice for pushing, I guess, what we now call PODA, that private outdoor designated area, was Huntington's investment in downtown and its redevelopment of streetscape.
Mm-hmm.
So we all know, if you've been to Huntington, how Greer is being redeveloped. That is going to connect through 4th Avenue to downtown, where we are at specifically right now.
Mm-hmm.
And 9th Street is being redeveloped to allow, I guess, the entire area to be pedestrianized. That's not to mean that it's always going to be pedestrianized. They're putting mechanical bollards in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
So if we're going to commit all this money, all these millions of dollars
Right.
into redeveloping our streetscape, we need to have legislation and rules and regs that support that too.
Sure, absolutely.
So,
Especially for
yeah.
tourism. I mean,
Yeah, and the last time Huntington tried that pedestrian-only zone here, they didn't have Summit Beer Station down here in 9th Street.
Now, it was a good thought at the time, Charles, but not well executed. Not well executed. No, this time they're adding benches. They're adding a permanent stage on 9th Street. The investment is much more than what it was.
It's more entertainment
Yes.
focused, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, and you've got some other good like neighbors here that are doing a great job too. That'll help draw a crowd beyond just
Absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Yep.
So this year, some good changes in the law. Anything you're really targeting? A couple of points for next year's legislation?
And this is where I get myself in trouble, Charles.
I hope so. Yeah.
So down to 5 pages.
Yeah. So with each of these bills that we've passed, we have had just as many, if not more, hiccups in interpretations
Sure.
and enforcement. So we're going to try and dial some of this stuff back. And what I mean is that we're getting nickel and dimed. So we've come up with all these, so we've come up with all these permits. We've come up with all these ways to make our businesses better. But then it's $100 here, $200 there.
Right.
That's on the docket.
Streamline it.
Yeah, and we've discovered some things that do not follow Chapter 60. If you're familiar with Chapter 60, it's the portion of the state constitution that stipulates what you can and can't do with alcohol. Well, we've discovered that this operational fee of $100 that's been assessed on all alcohol licensees in West Virginia, we discovered in Chapter 60 it says that can only be assessed one time per calendar year. So if you have 3 or 4 alcohol licenses for the last 4 years, you've paid $400.
Wow, multiple times.
Well, we discovered
Extra.
discovered that in Chapter 60 you should only had charged $100. So we're working to get those refunds out to people.
Yeah, it sounds like you need a good constitutional lawyer to take that to court if they don't give you the refund.
Well, I don't want to give too many secrets away, but
I know.
We've already had that portion of the Chapter 60 and the legislative ruling of that $100 fee. It's been audited and been confirmed that.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and
that's great news.
And I think for our listeners, too, that those $100 fees are going to the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission, and they don't need money. I mean,
it's essentially in their coffers. I think in the last broad legislative audit that they had, that they've got $17 million in their coffers.
Yeah, stashed away.
And much of that is from these operational fees.
Right.
So we need to return that to everybody.
Exactly.
Well, having said all of that, I think now is probably a good time to take a quick break and let Jeff grab that second beer. He's going to highlight from Summit Beer Station's craft beer taps. So let's get that beer poured and we'll have Jeff describe it. We'll be back in a second. All right, and now we have that beer number 2 in our glasses. Jeff, can you tell us what we're drinking?
You are drinking. Well, okay. Let me. I need all the details for this answer.
Yes.
This is poured from a Luker faucet, a Czech Pilsner faucet, and it is Weihenstephan Pilsner. And specifically, the pour I gave you is a Schnitt.
A Schnitt.
A Schnitt. So there are specialty pours with the Luker faucet. And,
okay.
The most traditional is the Hedlinka. It's just your standard quick pour, but I gave you the Schnitt pour because it's just half a beer basically.
And Charles said, what makes that different?
And Charles said he didn't want to drink much. So
that's true. I did ask for small pour.
I'm not doing it at credit. So basically, a Schnitt pour is roughly 60% wet foam and 40% beer.
Mm-hmm.
It's meant to be a quick beer, something you maybe grab on the way home from work. And I love Weihenstephan Pilsner, but I love it even more on the Luker faucet.
Well, I'll tell you what, the aroma that came out of this glass is amazing.
It is quite good.
Wow.
Well, the beauty of the faucet is that it's like driving a manual transmission. And you can control the way you pour this beer any number of ways. So when you release that side pull just at the sharpest angle, you get pure wet foam. I'm not talking about the foam that you get from a CO2 faucet and that just dissipates and disappears.
Yeah.
This is wet foam that has beer inside of it. Densely wet foam.
How long have you had this particular ability to pour the way that you'd like?
I bought 2 of these faucets shortly after we opened the beer garden.
Oh, okay.
I'd been wanting to bring them in for a long time. It's just that they're so expensive that
I imagine
it was hard to pull the trigger on it. But thanks to EIDL funds and PPP money, we made some equipment upgrades.
Nice.
So I'm glad you put some of that PPP money to good use here in Huntington, West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me too. This
Especially
is a delicious
beer
pour.
Yeah. So folks, Lucre faucets, these side pull draft faucets, there's not many places around West Virginia, certainly in southern West Virginia, that have these. And get out and try them if you find them other places, but certainly come to Summit and ask for the lager that they'll likely have on tap. And well, Jeff, we've seen a bunch of significant consumer beer trends over the past decade. I'm going to ask you, though, to look at the big picture and using your vast beer knowledge and your crystal ball, tell me where you see the beer market headed here today.
I think this is an easy transition. I am seeing more and more breweries invest in these side pull Lucre faucets, and specifically with Czech style beers that we don't see in the U.S. And I think that it's just the natural riding of the ship after smoothie sours and milkshake IPAs and lactose in this.
Adjunct crazy.
Yeah. That we kind of return to some of the basics. But the basics we're not necessarily familiar with in this country. I think we just think of Pilsner Urquell, and that's Czech beer, and that's not the case. So I of course, Charles, you're in Florida all the time. There are a couple of Florida breweries that are really doing this well. So I kind of see that expanding out. Yeah. Outside of that, I don't want to say this, but smoothie sours are all over the place, and I can't stand them. I don't want to like them. Most I don't like.
Well, it's trying to broaden the beer market. I mean, technically, it's defined as beer legally. So, but it doesn't taste like beer, and people who aren't fond of the hops and other things.
It is a good entrance for someone new to craft beer. Yeah. As far as getting them, I mean, I agree with you. Sours are not my favorite style preference, but it is a good introduction to somebody new to the craft beer scene.
It's not just sours, though, Aaron. It's these fruited up, sweet
graham
things.
cracker, vanilla, lactose, chocolate. I get it. What? American beer is known for having no rules. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, do your thing.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to build a beer market, and if you're a small brewer and you're looking for something to make your taps pour, and ring the cash registers, maybe you're going to do some of that crazy stuff. You don't have to. A lot of people choose not to, but those that do, I can't knock them. I mean, they're in business to make a profit, and so
build their customer base.
Style preferences here in West Virginia, though. What's growing? What's declining from what you're seeing or even hearing?
Yeah, I think those kettle sours once again. And funny enough, and I might get raked through the coals for this one too, but we're not selling as much IPA as we used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting because most people are still saying it's right on top, not just like growing anymore, but still the king.
Still selling a lot of it.
Yeah, I think that maybe the market for that has narrowed, and what I mean by that is that the breweries that we have access to in West Virginia now that make really amazing IPAs, I think that causes people to just funnel their attention to them. And like it's one thing for Sierra Nevada to make Hazy Little Thing, which is good in its own right. But it's another thing to get a hold of an Equilibrium IPA.
Right.
So I think that some of these smaller IPA breweries have gobbled up some of that attention. And so what ends up happening for us is that if we have an Equilibrium beer on tap, that's all those people are drinking. They're not branching out and maybe
into other styles.
They're not even taking the plunge on a West Virginia made New England IPA. It's just, we know that Equilibrium does this right, and I would imagine that's probably the case for a lot of West Virginia breweries too, that many of these New England IPAs have come dime a dozen, and some of them have just risen to the top. But I mean, outside of that, I don't really see a slough off of a particular style. Everybody talks a big game about coming out and drinking stout and porter, but that will sit on tap for a month.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
That's not a trend, but.
And I think people like Short Story and Stumptown have done very well with an IPA-centric kind of sales strategy.
I think Aaron and crew have knocked it out of the park with that. And as the industry evolves, devolves, whatever you want to call it, that if you can make a name for yourself on a particular style of beer, just make that particular style of beer.
Yeah.
I mean, you see this in the rest of the world where lambic breweries, they only make lambic.
Right.
Flemish sour breweries, they only make Flemish sours. Pilsner breweries in Germany only make Pilsner.
Right.
So
Stick to what you do.
Yeah. So why wouldn't that work here? And
I think it is in bigger markets where
Yeah.
they can like diversify. I mean, not diversify, but specialize a little more.
Yeah.
Just the opposite. Because they got a big enough market that if you want to be Berry House in Tampa that just makes lagers, you can do that. West Virginia, I know it's a little tougher proposition. There's markets a little bit small. So for a small brewery in West Virginia just to make one styles or two styles of beer, I understand why they think they have to make a little bit of everything.
Not to play devil's advocate, but probably Vermonters said the same about the Alchemist and Hill Farmstead too.
Well, it is. I think what brewers, the trap they fall into by trying to have something for every taste, is that they
Yeah.
make a lot of beers, but they're not
appeals to
good at
nobody.
making a lot of beers. I mean, it's tough to be an expert at making all the beer styles, and
Oh, yeah.
that's really
too
asking
broad
a lot
of
of
a
your
focus.
brewer, asking a lot of your brewer, and
Yeah.
that's very tough to achieve.
I know I've said this on this podcast before. My perspective, my mode of operation, my just way of doing business is that if you appeal to everybody, you appeal to nobody.
Right.
Yeah.
So find an identity for yourself.
Yeah.
So like for us, it's European beer.
Yeah.
When I open up the shop, it'll be independently made beer, and maybe that's a good progression, Charles.
So do you see trends in beer preferences coming faster, lasting a shorter time, or is that?
I don't see much of the flash in the pan stuff anymore. Like milkshake IPAs couldn't have died quick enough, and it looks like they're maybe finally gone.
Don't hear about them anymore.
No, and I think that's like maybe a contributing factor to DuClaw having their struggles that they have now is that they just
Yeah.
heavily invested in these goofy styles, and you know what? Your staying power of that is pretty limited, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, short term.
No.
it is. And so I'm just wondering, though, beyond beer style, is the overall craft market, and I'm going to include the imported market as well as the domestic craft brewers, is growth still realistic for them? Because it seems like nationally we have reached our peak, at least
Leveled
maybe
off a bit.
temporarily, for craft.
Yeah, I think that you asked me this question 3 or 4 years ago, and my answer is much different.
Yeah, I can't really come up with original questions that often, but it's still an important one.
I said if you asked me this question.
Oh, well, maybe I did. I don't know.
Our market's still small, so it's not saturated. That's the bottom line.
Sure.
But in other markets that have been oversaturated for so many years that the bubble's busting. Let's be honest. And we see this in the way that beer festivals are operating now, and what I mean by that is that they're not operating anymore. So I think that brewers are very careful in the way they expanded their operations, or they are probably in much better shape than those that felt that they needed to have locations on both coasts and multiple
Right.
tap rooms. I mean, think of Modern Times. I mean, Modern Times makes fantastic beer, and yet they couldn't support all their locations.
Right.
So that's some pretty serious writing on the wall. I think that West Virginia per capita is still
We're tiny.
Yeah.
toward the bottom as far as breweries per population.
For
but-
sure.
And I mean, my opinion, and just from looking at this market, is that we still have room in many places, certainly in Huntington, and we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah. We're definitely going to get into that. But I specifically want to know, Jeff, I've heard you've been working on some new projects or maybe some expansions to the Summit Beer Station model. So is there anything that you can tell us about those kinds of things that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I've never been a quitter. I tried the retail game many years ago, and that failed for it was like
I remember that. I went to
yeah,
that store.
extenuating circumstances there. We had some troubles with utilities, and everything I was making went to paying Appalachian Power. So I said, forget this. We'll open this up when I'm ready. And so we met with some like-minded people, and we're going to reopen the second iteration of my retail store.
Oh, no kidding. That's
And what
that's
can
cool.
we expect from that, and when can we expect that?
Well, I would have hoped that we had this open 2 months ago, but time moves pretty slowly in Charleston. No offense to everybody shuffling paperwork around over there.
You mean to get a regulatory approvals
Yes,
of that?
yes.
So paperwork issues.
Well, as far as the Secretary of State's concerned, we've been in operation for the last 3 months, but we don't have an alcohol license.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
but,
that's an issue.
Yeah, I wanted to pay a prorated fee, and then it just dragged on, and I said forget about it, and we'll be open July 3rd.
Oh, great. So once
So,
you're open, what can customers expect when they come see your second location?
So I still want to invest heavily in European beer, but I think this is where I run with West Virginia made products, and many of those products that I don't serve at Summit just because they either contextually don't fit with what we do, or we just don't have the space to make it work. And outside of that, I want to get into I hate the word artisanal, but I guess artisanal cider. So we have a bunch of really, really nice Basque Spanish cider coming in West Virginia, like true, dry, great world-class cider that's coming. We'll have that on the shelf. And then I want to get into sustainably made wine as well.
Okay. So a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I don't want to say just like organic product, but naturally fermented and open fermented, just more unique items.
Yeah, you've been a fan of those kind of wines for a while, I think.
I'm a lambic fiend, Charles. Of course, I would be interested in that wild fermented wine. Give me that dirty terroir.
Well, that's exciting. And again, you said you're going to be open July.
I hope by July 3rd. We won't be open the 4th. But
Yeah, clearly.
after that.
And that is the new license year for alcohol.
July 1 fiscal year
Yeah.
starts, but it's just an inconvenient time because July 1's on Saturday. So
And the way the holiday falls. But so obviously you mentioned shelf products. Are you going to have draft, taps, or is it just going to be shelf products?
I didn't even
And
think
cold
about
box products.
talking about this, but that's a good question because part of the bill that we worked on for the service industry was creating a food court bill or food court permit. And what this does is it allows multiple business owners in West Virginia to be under the same roof. And that doesn't have to be just alcohol. And one of which those business owners has to be a full service restaurant. So we've got a restaurant component over there. So at some point you'll be able to come into the Progress Building where we're located next to City Hall. And come
that's Progress Building in downtown Huntington.
Yes, 418 8th Street. And you'll be able to come in, have a beer, walk around, go get a bite to eat, and visit all the shops. But I don't want to put a timeline on that because you know how red tape works.
Well, the Huntington metro area is the largest in population of any metro area on the western side of West Virginia. But Huntington currently has only one craft brewery in operation. Jeff, what do you see as the reasons that the Huntington area has been so slow to develop a more vibrant brewery culture?
Oh, man. You're going to have to have me put my sociology hat on, I guess. I think that there's a learned fatalism to living in this part of the state. And I throw Charleston in that, too. That we expect to not have good things. So by way of that, we have a self-fulfilling prophecy. We don't have those good things because we don't expect to have them in the first place. I never take no for an answer, and so I got what I wanted out of this, but I don't want to open up a brewery. We've failed in this regard.
Yeah.
For a metro of roughly 300,000 people, largest
Right.
in the state, it leaves a bit to be desired.
Yeah. I mean, do you see any possibilities? I mean, I know we've been talking a long time about on the west side of Huntington, maybe a brewery coming, but
Yeah.
I mean, still nothing's happened. I mean, we've got Jason Beater up in Barbersville
That's coming.
going to open
Yeah.
a very little tiny place, but this is great. I mean, that's the Huntington Metro. I just wondered, do you see, though, the possibilities of any momentum picking up there?
Yeah, I was in Asheville a few weeks ago and chatting with John with Lookout Brewing.
Who's talked about coming in here to the Huntington's west side?
The property's purchased. I think that you know how the rumor mill works, and basically the reason that Durton hasn't moved over there, to the best of my knowledge, is because of the restrictions on John living in Asheville and not being a permanent resident of West Virginia.
Right.
So he couldn't legally open up anything here in terms of brewing. So I think it's coming. And it's
I thought that law got changed. That was part of that bill.
Like within the last month.
Yeah, well, I mean, just gone into effect. So he couldn't have done it beforehand.
Correct. Right? Yeah. And that was the main reason to get that pushed in that bill. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
That here we have somebody from another state, from the beer capital of the East Coast, and they want to invest in this area. And the property's purchased. Like everything, like they've mitigated they've everything. Like it's ready to roll.
Right.
And they couldn't do anything, couldn't invest any more money because of our stupid rules and regulations in this state.
Right.
I think to maybe get away from more of the negative things. A friend of mine who is actually behind Charles right now, Patrick Hensley, and myself, we have talked to another West Virginia brewery to try to bring a tap room here to Huntington. So
nice.
That's we've talked about that since maybe February, if I remember right. So
hopefully there's progress there.
Yeah, I don't. Let me get this straight. I don't want to brew. I don't want to oversee anybody brewing, so sell me your beer and I'll open your tap room.
No, I think that's important. The industry, whether it be retail or wholesale or certainly manufacturing, we need to work together to get more breweries open. And I know maybe some of the current breweries in West Virginia would say, oh, we don't want any more competition, but the ones who distribute and stuff. But really, there's a great market here and the size of these communities. With the amount of beer they drink, West Virginians drink a lot of beer. We're mid-pack in how much beer we consume per capita, but we're way in the low side of how much local beer we drink per capita.
I think the other attractive feature to Huntington is it's more densely populated than
Charleston.
Than Charleston.
It's
like twice as densely populated. No offense to Charleston.
No, but I mean, Huntington Metro certainly includes parts of Kentucky and Ohio.
Oh, I just mean population per square mile.
Yeah.
We have more people living in downtown Huntington than probably
I see.
most downtowns in West Virginia. So my statement here is that you invest in downtown Huntington, you have a baked-in population that is likely to come see you.
Yeah, I've been impressed with your Huntington political administration, the mayor's office, or whoever runs things, city council, because they've done a great job with blocking off these streets every weekend in the summer, and you've got these beautiful little entertainment zones where you guys are out on the street selling your beers and other people maybe selling other things. I don't know what they're all. But anyway, it's just a crowd comes out. That's been going on for a few years here.
Yeah, and on any given night you can come out and see live music and drink in public.
Drink in public. I love it.
Well, before we close this podcast, I am very curious to hear your read on which West Virginia breweries are doing the best job. And I want you to include not only those that are brewing the best beer, but also the ones that are doing the best in a business sense at getting beer to you that's fresh and fairly priced for the style and the quality that it is. So start with who's making some standout beer.
I'm going to seem like a very, very old man by saying this, and hopefully this gets me some cred. But Short Story released a Maibach that blew me away. And of course, this is not what most of your listeners want to hear. Yeah,
you haven't sold. You don't sell much of that.
Yeah, as far as style
There's
preference.
This awesome Maibach.
But hey, you know what? That's good.
No, that's good to hear that you actually enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I saw it on tap in their Charleston tap room. So.
Yeah.
I took a 4-pack home last time I was at the Charleston tap room. I thought that was a really, really nice West Virginia made lager. As far as just hand selling stuff, it's all the usual suspects, weather grounds out, grinding as they do, and I get a contact every week from Bad Shepherd, and
good.
I think that some of the breweries who have signed, like High Ground.
Yeah, I mean, they were
signed recently.
Yeah, they're still sending me emails. They're still keeping
Yeah.
me up to date. Big Timber, much the same. I got an email from Wayne yesterday, just keeping me up to speed. So I think that there's a lesson to learn from this for West Virginia standpoint, is that if you sign with a wholesaler, keep somebody on your staff to
hitting the pavement.
continue to reach out to retailers.
Yeah, and I think that is so true.
Very important.
And it's something that small breweries, not just in West Virginia, but a lot of places, they think they can just put stuff in distribution through a distributor, and then it's off their hands, and the distributor will sell it for them. But they don't remember or always think that distributor might have 100 different brands that are exactly the same almost as what they've got, and they can't go out here and represent you like you would. It's just not going to happen. And so if you don't have somebody out here on your own staff as a small brewery out working your distribution, you're not going to find the success 9 times out of 10 anyway that you'd like.
No disagreement.
Well, we've got to wrap this podcast up, guys. Jeff McKay, I want to thank you so much for sharing your observations on our local beer market and for doing such a great job promoting craft beer here in southern West Virginia.
Yeah, I definitely echo that sentiment. Jeff, appreciate you taking the time with us, and it was a great time interviewing you in your beautiful beer garden. So thanks again for being on West Virginia Beer Roads.
Thank you, guys.
So for Aaron McCoy, this is Charles Bachway saying we've enjoyed our time with you today. And while we're at Summit Beer Station in Huntington, West Virginia, and exploring the West Virginia Beer Roads.
This brings us to the close of another podcast. Remember, you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast host. Thank you for listening to West Virginia Beer Roads.
West Virginia Beer Roads is a production of BrilliantStream.com.